ultimately it's his fault that he lost. Had he not done that, it would have never led to that, but it's the same thing. I mean, again, it's like what Toby said, you know, I lost Ben Parker, I lost Uncle Ben, it was my fault, you know, that's how it is, man, and they had to forgive themselves, and ultimately, Peter was right, because they wound up saving the villains, so, you know, that was kind of a, and also, what about the little, what about the nod to Miles Morales? I got a huge problem when Jamie Foxx wanted a Black Spider-Man, but that was a little bit of a plot hole because maybe I'm wrong, but Doctor Strange said earlier in the film that the only reason they crossed over is because they knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, including the other Peter Parkers. Okay, that's fine. That's the way it is. But when did Electro find out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man? And if he was, then he would have known. And he would have known he wasn't a Black Spider-Man. So I feel like that was kind of put in there just to be an Easter egg, but didn't make much sense. So I gotta talk about where we go from here. Like, I'm gonna do a whole video on this, but I am a bit confused. So the world does not remember Peter Parker, but they remember Spider-Man. That makes sense, except for with Happy and other characters that were close to him. So he knew May because of Spider-Man, but he doesn't remember Peter Parker. So here's what I don't know. Like, are some of their memories just like blank, or is it like they remember a person but not Peter Parker? Or do they remember, like, are there memories, like, of Peter, but he's wearing the Spider-Man costume, and his face is, like, you know, blurred out or whatever? Like, I want to know what he...
How about this used graphic calculator at a pawn shop?
Okay? You can't even deny that's a sloppy ending. I mean, it's a sloppy ending because I have questions. You know, not sloppy in the way it was edited or written, but just sloppy in the way that it was, like, I don't understand, like, this is an unsolved mystery here. Same thing with, like, it goes back to, like, how, you know, Hawkeye's wife's cell phone was still working after 5 years, you know, that didn't make any sense, even though some could make it make sense, it's not really explained well enough. Like, there's just things that, you know, these movies do that you have to kind of forgive, you know what I mean, and just kind of let go. But this one, I think, could have a major implication, because I don't know if we're done with the MCU Peter Parker. We might not be done with this character.
Just got finished watching Spider-Man No Way Home. It was amazing. Decided I'm going to come and play the remastered version of Spider-Man on PS5. The movie was absolutely amazing. I went and got back in line and watched it a second time. It was so damn good. Oh, I can't tell you how good that movie was. I mean, I even liked it more than Endgame. I think this might be the best Marvel movie. If you're a Spider-Man fan, it will be. Not going to spoil anything for you guys, but it was absolutely.
Attention unit, kidnapping reported.
Trust me, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you get all the feels.
Gonna need to jumpstart more surveillance towers, or I'll never know what's going on in this district. Mosh pit? Great! Get him!
Damn, Spider-Man is back.
laying out bullies?
Thank you! We've got an armed robbery in progress. Response needed north of Houston. All units, a break-in was just reported. Officers needed in Tenderloin. Please copy.
Hey, we don't need you here right now, all right?
Making our way over from Pier 4 now. Show us about 8. Attention units, drug deal reported. Need an officer to check it out. Officers needed in Tenderloin. Please copy.
I could not believe a movie this hype could still surprise me, because I was just expecting to walk into something so exciting. And then I was like, wow, this gave me so much more drama and depth and nuance that I'm like, I was so glad that's what they led with. What's going on there, Reject Nation? We just attended the Spider-Man No Way Home premiere, and we just want to give our instant reaction, honest thoughts after watching the movie. You guys know, like, how much we were looking forward to this film. There's going to be absolutely no spoilers here. We're going to be exceptionally careful with how to phrase what we're saying. And they turned off all these lights. There was a bunch of noise earlier, so sorry for it looking a little bit darker than usual. The best the sound's going to be in the lighting right now. But I had to hop on here really quick to tell you guys how we felt. And I'm just going to start with how I felt when the movie was done, which was a unique feeling, something I don't really get to experience too often. When the credits started rolling and I was sitting in the crowd, I wasn't like filled with like all this heart-pulsing excitement. I was sitting there in awe. I was sitting there impressed. I was sitting there going, they did it. They made a pure Spider-Man movie, and they didn't just make a Spider-Man movie. They made a great movie. While it was funny, exciting, action-packed, sure, the movie breathes well. It takes its time. It feels like pure Spider-Man with the themes it chooses to explore. The stakes and consequences are palpable from beginning to end. This is easily Tom Holland's best performance that he's done in the, like, people I don't think are prepared for just how freaking fantastic he is in this movie. He is incredible. There's more to touch on. Before I get carried away, Sean, please.
Yeah, exactly. I had a similar experience with this where, you know, we watched it with a crowd that was really into it, that was really responsive, that was cheering and hooping and hollering and crying and weeping. And I definitely had a lot of those reactions, but when the movie was ended, and even throughout, I was just sitting there going, wow, this feels like something special. This feels like a moment that I will remember. You know, because we see a lot of spectacular movies But this really does have that kind of endgame quality where you're like, oh wow, they're taking a swing and they're doing something big. And what's awesome about that is it takes a lot of apprehensions that I know we've shared about the previous MCU Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. It rectifies a lot of that stuff with confidence and with hard decision making. I mean, this is a Spider-Man movie that will give you certain things that you want, but also will give you some things that are challenging and that hurt. Yeah. And whether that be in the emotional stakes or the action, even the action in this movie felt like violence more than action in some cases. Yeah, I was quite swept up in this.
It's darker than the trailers let on. It's way more emotional. You know how much we cover on this channel with Spider-Man No Way Home. And I was even talking with like Cosmic Wonder, still full of surprises.
Even despite all that.
From beginning to end and hearing certain things of how they might go down plot point wise, watching the execution was even surprising in that regard. Coy, my man, the person that we are here because of him. We got some special interviews, of red carpet interviews to show you guys. But Coy, what'd you think, man?
I think as a Spider-Man fan, it systematically went through every single issue I've had with Spider-Man in other mediums with the comic books and went, hey, I'm paying attention. Here is the answer to X, Y, and Z. And it did it in a way that felt smooth, efficient, and plotted out in a way that I feel like this was written over the last 20 years, like 30 years, 40 years. It gave me Spider-Man from the 60s. It gave me Spider-Man with Tom Holland. It gave me Spider-Man that felt so true to the character, but it also felt like it fit with what we've had with Tom so far. And the visuals, like, I love a good psychedelic journey. And this, to me, was a better Doctor Strange movie than the Doctor Strange movie we've had so far. I'm sorry, Scott, I love you. This was so surrealistic, and the comedy was maybe even funnier than Homecoming, and I think Homecoming might be the funniest Spider-Man movie so far. And I just can't get over the fact that I laughed and cried, and sometimes both, and my tears blended together in like this cacophonous medley of just fucking emotion, and it was Spider-Man. At the end of the day, all of that being said, this might be the most authentic Spider-Man movie I've ever seen.
And Peter Parker. And Peter Parker. Like, my favorite Spider-Man movies are honestly Spider-Man 2 and The Amazing Spider-Man. The things that I love about those, I'm talking tonal-wise, exploration, themes, that's present here. So when I'm saying, like, this is one of the best Spider-Man movies, I'm not talking strictly in terms of fan service. While there's fan service here, as you see presented in the trailers, it's not great because of fan service. It's great because it's a great movie. That's something I was pleasantly surprised by. John Watts' direction in this, whoa, this guy learned style. Whoa, this guy learned, he learned the editing room.
Marvel let him have the style.
Like, there are stakes and consequences. Tension throughout most of this and just beautiful scene work. Michael Giacchino's score is brilliant in this film. This is something I wasn't expecting to say. I was really surprised by how I felt when it was done. Green Goblin. Holy crap. I was like, he's better in this movie than he is in the first movie. I was like, how'd they do that? How'd they he's so menacing and insidious, and Willem Dafoe is such a great performance.
It feels like a mix, as a comic fan, of Ultimate Spider-Man mixed with 616 Norman Osborn. There's so much going on, both in its action and its pathos with the Goblin. There's so much just happening at you, and it really establishes the character better, I think, than we've seen him in live action. It's a really astounding performance.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I felt like with Lizard, it was two-dimensional. Sandman, they lost some of the three-dimensional stuff that you know, like that you would sort of hope for at least. They still kept the three-dimensional layers of Doc Ock and Electro. The one that just stood out the most was definitely Green Goblin. Like, don't get me wrong, they're all good in the movie.
Yeah.
They're all enjoyable. There are certain choices they make with particularly Sandman and Lizard that I wasn't too fond of. I can't go into specifics as to why. Can you kind of guess what I'm getting at?
I can. I'm very excited for a spoiler review.
Yeah, there's a couple of choices.
I feel myself overthinking.
There was a couple of parts that I was like, I don't know why they chose to do it that way, but okay. But they're all great. Aunt May's wonderful in this film.
Everyone in Peter's life.
That's the thing.
Local units. A break-in is reportedly in progress.
Spider-Man. When I watched Far From Home recently, and to give you guys an idea, Homecoming and Far From Home are closer to the bottom of my ranking when it comes to the Spider-Man films. When Far From Home started, I was like, why is Peter in love with MJ? Where did this come from? And then it's like, they're cute, sure. I really cared about them a lot in this movie. I'm pretty sure one part brought you to tears, if I'm not mistaken.
I cried a few times for real, not just like one or two, just like legit crying.
When the movie was done, I looked over at John like, his whole face was just wet.
That's where just like tears just start to come, and you're not even going, ooh, like you're not sobbing, but they're just coming. Yeah. They're just going.
I have to say, because of the unique experience in the theater, that and I've got to watch them both back to back, but my favorite Spider-Man movie is probably Into the Spider-Verse. And because LA, I got to watch this right next to Lord and Miller, hearing the moments that they cheered at and feeling their emotion was exactly the moments I was feeling. So I told John Watts after this was over, this is the love letter to Spider-Man that I've always wanted to see in live action, and this is the love letter to Silver, Bronze, Modern, Ultimate, every age of Spider-Man. And I love that John Watts just loves the character, and John Watts was like, oh, I'm gonna make Spider-Man. This is a masterpiece.
I would want to watch it again, just to be safe, before I give an official ranking of where it's at. But right now, I'm a pretty solid, like, 9.5 out of 10 on this movie. While I think there were some parts early on in the film where some of the dialogue back and forth with some of the villains was a little bit off to me, because they have to do some catching up and exposition stuff. Some of that seemed a little bit off. While there's some choices about certain villains I wasn't a big fan of, not that it really bothered me immensely, but I was kind of like, huh, okay. For the most part, this was an amazing Spider-Man movie, all puns intended. Yes, I mean that sincerely. Like, I could not believe a movie this hype could still surprise me. So I was just expecting to walk into something so exciting. And then I was like, wow, this gave me so much more drama and depth and nuance that I'm like, I'm so glad that's what they led with.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty immediate. It hits the ground running and it throws you into a very tangible, albeit very sci-fi situation. And it doesn't let go, and it never loses sight of what's important. You know, it's got the laughs, it's got the action, it's got all the things that you want, but more than anything, I feel like spiritually it's on point. And that's the important thing, because it's easy to please people with a Spider-Man movie. It's easy to have a passable Spider-Man movie for people to eat up. I thought they really fine-tuned the actual underlying point of it all and never let that go, and that's perhaps the best thing I could say about it. For all the fan service, all the things people want, that never takes over the movie to the point where it loses.
Would you look at that?
At no point did I feel like this movie was made for anyone except Spider-Man fans. That's the highest praise I can give it. At no point did I feel like this was made to appease blank or blank. At no point did I feel like this was anything except
but the Chief was warming up to
Whether it was a drama, whether it was
His
a
casual
comedy, whether it was a
disregard
whether
for
it
by
was
the
a
book
love,
thinking
whether it
was
was
a breath of fresh
supporting
air.
characters, whether it was
She'd come
fun.
around.
This was
Someday.
a Spider-Man movie that I cannot wait to watch over and over again, and maybe even more importantly, talk about with everyone, because it's an important piece of art, and Spider-Man's an important piece of art. There's a reason we all love Spider-Man, and this is something truly special. This is exceptional.
This was character-driven.
Yeah.
And shit, I can't tell you, like, how relieved I was. I'm telling you, like, you feel like life or death stakes in this movie.
Yeah.
That's also what's like, you don't feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Watch this movie. Keep a lookout for when we do a spoiler talk, because we're planning to spoil.
It's going to be an hour, because this is when I feel myself going, like, say the things.
It's a great movie.
Very well done.
See it. I also give it an
Atlantic.
Watch the new Spider-Man movie. I've decided to play the remaster of the video game. I had it for almost a year, but never played it.
Officers, please converge on Longacre. Attention units. We've just received a report of a break-in. Officers, please converge on Longacre.
Hello everyone, Eric here, Bailey here, Kim here. Guys, we're going to spoil the hell out of Spider-Man No Way Home. So again, if you haven't seen this movie, it shouldn't be the way you find out everything. Go watch the movie. But if you're sticking with us, you've seen the movie and you're ready for us to discuss spoilers. I can't stress that enough, because people have fought hard to not be spoiled in this movie. Alright, 3, 2, 1, full spoiler zone. Spider-Man No Way Home. And you know what I'm going to throw in? Full spoiler zone for Venom 1 vs. Carnage, and the full spoiler zone for Hawkeye Episode 5, because I think both will come up in this conversation. Alright, you're still with us. Guys, Tim and I did a review of this movie already, non-spoiler review. We don't need to go too much into this, but I just do want to do a little bit quick overall thoughts. But let's start with you, Bailey, because we haven't heard your thoughts at all yet on what you thought of this film.
On Spider-Man, you mean?
Spider-Man.
Was I supposed to see that? Oh, shoot.
Oh, no.
I'm not prepared for this. Just kidding. I saw it twice yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a lot of hours in my day. I really liked it. I liked it a lot. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to have things I'm going to say critically later, but I do want to preface that by saying I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was funny. I thought it was also heartbreaking. I thought that everyone was acting their little butts off. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough to see it a second time.
Kim, let's do a quick a refresher on your thoughts, I guess, and now you don't have to hold back on anything you might have been slightly holding back on for fear of spoiling.
Yeah, well, I am literally still reeling from this cinematic feat that I have seen, that I have witnessed. I've never witnessed before in my life. This is new ground. I couldn't sleep last night because, I mean, that sounds extreme, but it's true. But between this and The Matrix Resurrection, it's just all buzzing around my head. And yeah, I just love what they've done. So I'll stop there. We'll talk more in detail later.
Yeah, I have some quibbles, but overall, this is a hell of an accomplishment. It's one of those things where I'm just impressed it's not a huge mess. Like, there's the version of this that is just, like, throwing everything on screen, and it's nonsense. It's like, cool, we like those people, but none of it really plays as a movie. This works. Is it full of fan service? You bet your butt it is. But it very much works, and, I saw it at a press screening with not a subdued audience. They were still cheering. But then I saw, Bailey and I and Ryan were all at the first showing at the Chinese theater yesterday. A bunch of us fandom folks went with an absolutely insane audience. I'm sure we'll talk about more as we continue. Who act like they were having like a religious out-of-body experience watching this movie. And definitely, look, for a movie trying to hit home with the audience, it succeeds on that level big time. So yeah, we'll get into the minutia, some issues we had along the way, but I think, yeah, it's definitely a success. I think our first big topic just has to be Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, simply because, like, that's what everyone was hoping for. That's what a bunch of a-holes were trying to spoil with leaked imagery on the internet. It was just the thing that was the most anticipation that, unless you were looking for those spoilers or someone threw them in your face, you weren't 100% sure on, but were pretty hopeful of. So, guys, Andrew and Tobey were back. What did you think of seeing them again and their use in this movie?
I liked Andrew more in this movie than I liked him in his own movies. I thought he was very likable. He was very charismatic. It was wild seeing Toby again. When Andrew first showed up, because you can't see who he is, I kind of assumed he was Toby. I didn't think they were going to get both of them. I was doing a really good job not being spoiled, honestly. I just had my head in the sand. I was like, oh, that's probably Toby. He takes his mask off, and he's got that giant hair. I'm like, that's not Toby. Oh, shoot. But I liked it. I liked that both of them got to have, like storylines that were resolved sadly in their own universes, got kind of their own sort of, like, happier or relatively happier resolution in this one. With Toby, it was like the Doc Ock reunion, and with Andrew, obviously, it was like the making up for letting Gwen Stacy die thing. Like it was like touching. It was nice. It was nice having them. It was nice that they weren't just there for fan service. There was like real narrative reasons, both in this universe and in their own universes, why it was cool they were there.
Yeah, what do you think?
I loved the amount of involvement that they had in the plot, because, you know, there were fears at some point that they'd just be cameos, and they were integral to what went on, and they were both so great. And I agree with you, Bailey, that Andrew Garfield was better and more likable in this movie than in his own movies. I think I might say that about Tobey Maguire as well. He certainly brought a maturity, and not just in his more grizzled look. And I love that you found out, you know, that he'd had a happy relationship over these years with his MJ, and kind of said to Andrew Garfield, Peter Parker, there's hope for you, you know, you can have this too. Some of the fan service and kind of banter between the Spider-Men was a little bit kind of jarring and didn't always work, and I'd say that about the villains too, but otherwise, I thought that it was really well executed.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just reiterate that they were in the movie way more than I expected. I thought it would be the final battle, like the glimpses we got in the Statue of Liberty. I thought they'll come in at the end, and it'll be a fun 10 minutes. But they're there for a solid, portion of the movie, and I really love that, and I love that they got scenes that let the movie breathe, and like just the three of them talking, just Andrew and Toby talking, and that they got to have these character moments that I think they could have skimped on, but they didn't. And yeah, the closure, that's like the crazy thing, is like, whoa, this legitimately feels like a sequel to their movies once they come in too. I just rewatched all of them, and so the Andrew Garfield movies, it's like, him and Emma Stone have great chemistry together. I liked him in the movies, even though the second one especially is such a mess. But I was like, oh my god, he's such a good actor, he's making me tear up, and he's like talking about letting Gwen die. That's amazing. And so it was like a redemption for him as Spider-Man, because he never got, never finished that as a trilogy. They never kind of went anywhere with it. So that was really, like, I think he kind of comes out of it almost as like an MVP for me, even though I love Toby too. Yeah, that was very, very cool. Any favorite moments for you guys with them? I would say the back cracking is up there for me. But anything stick out for you guys for the Spider-Man interplay?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that backtracking bit, yeah. Although I was a little bit like, oh god, the old jokes. Oh, he's old now. They're both old.
But it's also a callback to the back thing in Spider-Man 2, which was also a callback to his real life back issues. So there's like a
so meta.
As a person with back issues, I like being represented on screen. What can I say? I thought it was cute. Did I think narratively that was like the best place for that cute little conversation to be happening? Grinding the entire action to a halt for 20 minutes right before the final battle. Maybe not my favorite like banter placement, but like isolated from the the story structure, I thought it was a fun little scene. But also it was like get to the
all units be advised.
I loved it. I could have had them talking for a half hour.
I think they did actually talk for a half hour, Eric.
Spider Chad. If the deleted scenes, if they want to give us later, just...
Oh, they've got so much to discuss. Who can blame them?
Before we move on, I'll say the other funny thing I thought with the chat was, again, there was certainly a million meta aspects to it, but also, as we talked, sort of the redemption of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was him feeling like the uncool one of the group. Like, I haven't met an alien, your villains are cooler than mine. And them extremely meta to tell him he's amazing. Because this movie's called The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, I get it.
But because I loved him so much, I was like, yeah, Andrew Garfield. Let's talk about the villains, though, because obviously that is the way the movie was actually promoted, was the villains coming in from the other movies. What did you guys think overall of this bevy of villains? We got 5 in total, not 6, so it's still not a Sinister 6. That's something they're still saving one day for a Spider-Man movie. What did you think of them in general, and sort of what stood out to you the most about the use of the 5 returning villains here?
Well, it was very exciting seeing Doc Ock and the Green Goblin again. Obviously, I'll be happy seeing them whenever. But I think again, like, the thing that surprised me the most was Jamie Foxx. Like, I mean, they did such a good job, I think, keeping the other villains apart from Doc Ock and Green Goblin under wraps. Like, I did not know any of them were going to show up, and then so many of them showed up. But I think I was very surprised and delighted, much in the way I was with Andrew Garfield, with how Jamie Foxx was in this movie. He was more likable in this movie than in his own movie. He delivered a lot of the funniest lines, I thought. Like, he was great. Every time he was on screen, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, Jamie Foxx is back. Awesome. More from this guy, please. I was rooting for him at the end. I was like, yeah, maybe he should be electrified. I think he's got a point.
Jim?
Jamie Foxx was brilliant, and also one of the worst for me as in this film, because some of his lines just did not land, or they just made me cringe. Some of his lines in the comedy moments, and with the banter between the villains at one point was just like, oh, this is really diminishing their menace. But ultimately, I guess that was deliberate, because they're supposed to be redeemed by the end or cured. So I get that. For me, Willem Dafoe was my favourite. He was just, not quite my MVP. I will reveal my MVP later. Aside from that one, he was the MVP for me.
Yeah, same here. I grew up reading Spider-Man comics, and like the Green Goblin, specifically the Norman Osborn version, because there's been a lot of people who have been Green Goblin in the comics, was like his main villain, and we only got that in one movie, because even in the Andrew Garfield movie, like, Chris Cooper shows up and dies, and he was supposed to come back in a sequel we never got. So yeah, to have Dafoe back, and they have 2 huge fights, and, we'll get to him killing a loved one of Peter's, which is, a integral part of their history in the comics. Like, he was the real menace here, because yes, the villains were used a lot for comedy, some of which I loved. I mean, I definitely cracked up at the Sandman, Electro, you fell into something, I fell into something too conversation. But I also agree, Kim, I mean, you and I talked about how the first half of this movie felt a little clunky to us, and I think that's because the comedy was like 70% landing, and some of it was like, some of it kind of fell a little flat. I thought Doctor Strange too. But yeah, as the movie progresses, it's like they redeem Otto, which I think is the right call about halfway through the movie, and then Norman just kind of gets to rise up as like the main villain here. And by the way, I love that he wore a purple sweatsuit over his armor so that it could be torn away and kind of turn him into the comic book costume with the purple. Very convoluted way to do it, but I'll accept it. Let's talk about the ending of the movie, though. Not the credits stuff. That'll be next. But the actual ending of the movie and how things wrap up for Peter Parker in this movie, which is certainly a big, a huge shift in everything happening here with this sacrifice he makes. What do you think of a very not like the most upbeat ending for Peter, even though Spider-Man is swinging through the city at the end?
I loved it. I actually, anyone who will listen to me talk about Spider-Man, which is becoming a shorter and shorter list these days, knows my issues with MCU Spider-Man. I think that Spider-Man's story, it is like crucial for him to be broke as hell, make his own costume. Well, I was like complaining about it while in line for snacks before the movie. And then at the end of the movie, I was like, am I a witch? Did I will this into being? Like, I was so amped. Because to me, it really kind of takes away from, like, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that I personally love. when he's being bankrolled by a billionaire and he doesn't make his own stuff and he just like is one like little part of a much bigger, more powered team. Now he just gets to have his own little story that he crafts himself, and like, yes, it's very sad. Obviously, we all want him to go to MIT, but I was amped about it. I loved it. That's my thought. Anyway, sorry, Peter. I want you to be miserable forever. My bad.
Oh, Peter Bailey, you are brutal.
But like in a friendly way.
Friendly neighborhood, Brutal Bailey.
And I loved just, you know, starting with the fight between him and Green Goblin, and you don't for 1 minute think he is going to go and attempt to kill Green Goblin, and then he does. And then he's stopped by Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker in a what-if moment, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, and that shows a darker side of Tom Holland's Peter Parker that we haven't seen before, which could be interesting going forward. And then with the whole the moment when he walks into the bakery or coffee shop, whatever it is, where MJ works, and he's going to give her the note, and she's there, and they have that exchange, and then and Ned's there. He obviously sees that she's happy without him, she's getting on with her life, and if he intervenes at this point, he's going to screw everything up for her, and he does the mature thing. He's finally matured, you know, and he walks away. And, you know, and on top of the fact, you know, it's all kind of return to scratch for him. It's going to be really interesting in these next 3 films that Amy Pascal has announced as to what direction it goes in. You know, yeah, that's it.
No, I'm glad you mentioned the thing with the Goblin, because it's a very cliche moment we've seen a million times now of the hero being like, I'm not going to stoop to your, like, almost killing them but then stopping themselves. I like that he couldn't stop himself, although he kind of did, because another Peter Parker, but it's still, like, it was, like, the fact that he was going to go through with it if Toby hadn't jumped in there, I thought was a nice way to twist a cliche moment. And then also,
it may have flown under the radar because of everything else that's going on, but there was a small kind of indie comic book movie that opened yesterday by the name of Spider-Man No Way Home. Maybe you heard of it, maybe you haven't. Well, apparently a lot of you have, because a lot of you went to go see it. Now, we of course know that when we did Ticket Watch 2021, we know that it crashed ticketing websites and all that kind of stuff. But how good was it actually going to do? Because while we heard a lot of reports of people saying, man, I couldn't get tickets for opening day, we also heard a lot of people saying, 3 days later and I was still able to find tickets. So we were kind of wondering, how was it going to do at the box office on its opening? Well, don't ask anymore, because it did real damn well on its opening night, to the tune of about $50 million, which is over half of the current pandemic box office record for an opening weekend. And this was just on the Thursday night. Spider-Man No Way Home had the by far largest opening night of any movie in the last couple of years in the pandemic era, making $50 million on its Thursday. This comes just from the folks over at Screen Rant for saying the following. With the film finally in theaters, Spider-Man No Way Home is already setting box office records by becoming the highest performing Thursday preview sales of the year, according to Fandango. The MCU threequel also set the record for the best-selling Thursday opener since 2019's Avengers Endgame, surpassing the previous record holder Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Deadline has also brought word that the film has grossed $50 million in its opening weekend. The largest Sony preview and the third highest grossing weekday opener behind Endgame's $60 million and Star Wars The Force Awakens $57 million. The film also currently holds the highest critic and audience approval ratings on Rotten Tomatoes by any live-action Spider-Man film. So, a movie in the pandemic era has become the third highest Thursday night opening film of all time. I do want to point out to Kimberly, who may be getting some false hope here,
that hope is very real.
It made $7 million less than Star Wars The Force Awakens did, and Star Wars The Force Awakens did not make $250 million in its opening weekend. I'm just throwing that out there, just so you know.
You can throw out whatever you want.
Just don't want to
It's
get
on the
your
way
hopes
to
too high by these
250,
numbers.
baby.
But in all honesty, this is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I mean, this is so... I mean, we all knew this was going to shatter, absolutely shatter, the existing pandemic-era box office opening weekend record, which is currently held by Venom 2. Venom 2, yes, more than Shang-Chi, yes, more than Black Widow, yes, more than Fast 9. Venom 2 is the biggest opening box office weekend in the pandemic era of the last couple of years at $90 million. This is going to well more than double that. Like, double that. But again, I'm afraid a lot of people are going to hear this statistic and just think, oh, that's interesting. Wrap your heads around this. We are still in a pandemic era. We are still have some areas where there's a lot of restrictions. There are still a lot of people nervous about going to the movie.
We're back to wearing masks.
We're back to wearing masks, having to wear masks. This movie just became the third biggest in history, only behind a Star Wars movie and Endgame. That's it. No other movie in cinematic history has had a big... Now, I've already heard the arguments online from some people saying, oh, well, you know, that's only really because...
New York's noisy, but my mask can zero in on muffled sounds. The kind of tied-up kidnap victim might
Oh,
make.
it's just people... No. You can make all those... You can make all those valid points. You can raise all those valid points. But for every valid point you raise about an excuse about why so many people went, there are valid points to be raised about what still kept a lot of people away. No matter which way you try to cut this, right now, any movie opening up on a Thursday, and on that Thursday,
Excuse me.
$50 million is insane. Now, I will, just because it's a valid point, Screen Rant also points out something very, very valid, and they say this. It should be noted that unlike most Thursday night previews, which usually start around 6 o'clock, Spider-Man No Way Home started having showings earlier on the weekday, with some theaters holding screenings as early as noon. In the past, Thursday night box office previews are generally stemmed from movies launching at midnight or closer to said hour in theaters, with Avengers Endgame keeping many audiences in their seats until nearly 4 a.m. with its extended runtime. With theaters still looking to bounce back from the pandemic downsell and studios looking to capitalize on audiences' hungers to see new films on the big screen, it's understandable that Thursday previews have slowly started turning earlier in the day. So I will give them that. I will give you that. The fact that this one probably had about 2 extra screenings than most other Thursday night games. But even given that,
Attention unit. We have an armed robbery in a commercial area. Nearest officer, please proceed to Manhattan.
It's still only going to make $250 million opening weekend. It will. I'm still going to keep my money on that. It's not. I mean, listen, it's not on pace. Even with this $50 million opening weekend, it's not on pace to hit $250 million. But,
in the words of Hamilton, just you wait, just you wait.
Are you saying that it's not going to throw away its shot? Is that what you're going to say? Is that what you're saying here?
Not gonna throw away its shot.
Just like my country. Young, what is it? Just like my country, I'm young,
scrappy and hungry, and I'm not
hungry.
throwing away my shot.
So that's Spider-Man right now. That's Spider-Man. And sure enough, you know, Ray, I don't know if you noticed it, but last night at the theaters, I haven't seen a crowd like that at the theater. It's been a long time. Since we've seen a crowd like that at the theaters.
So many people.
Like, it was really nice that we had a nice open theater with lots of room because it was a private theater, but the concession lines were long.
When I walked to concessions, and I was like, oh, let me give it. Oh my God.
Yeah,
oh my God.
You weren't going to make it in for the movie. Fortunately
I didn't
for you.
cut, but I did say, Robert, Rosa, hit your sis up and get me a ginger ale,
You were
bro.
lucky that Rob was already in line, and he was able to get your order for you, or else you wouldn't have made it back to the theater in time for the start of the movie.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, and by the way, the start of our movie,
oh my God.
you gotta understand, it was a private theater, right? For some reason, they had it messed up, and they started playing the movie. It's like, why are there Spanish subtitles on the movie? It's like, and I thought maybe that's just something for the scene. And everything had these big Spanish subtitles on it, so they had to come in, restart the movie for us with a clean screen. But anyway, there was that.
So I said to one of the fans sitting next to me, I'm like, now you can brag that you've seen it 1.85 times
right.
in one night.
Like, you people on the East Coast might have seen it 3 hours earlier than us. But we saw the first 5 minutes of the movie twice. Twice.
2 times.
Not once. Not that piddly little one stuff. Kim, you're hearing these numbers. These are impressive. Well, what's your response to it? Are you surprised to hear it? What are you thinking?
My response is that I'm feeling very good about my side of the facts.
You do know it's still tracking.
I know it's still tracking, but let me be great. I am very excited. I think it's really great because, like you said, not only is this in a pandemic and you know, we're coming out of the pandemic, but we've got a new variant. We're back to masks. I had to find a crusty mask that was under my car seat because I thought we were done with that, and I was like, oh, let me put this on my face. And you know what? The people came out in droves.
Yeah. By the way, we should clarify for people here that you might be saying to yourself, well, wait, I thought LA was still having indoor masks. We live right beside LA County. We're in Riverside County. And in Riverside County, you haven't had to wear masks indoors for a while, but now it's California-wide, so it just opened up again. So there was that as well, and yet the people still came.
It was so busy at the AMC. It was so busy, and I was just so hopeful. And man, people were just so excited. And John, you should be getting nervous. I don't know why you're so confident. Good for you and your self-esteem, but
I'm just saying, like, if for this movie to get to 250, it would have had to have made about around probably 65 million for its Thursday, especially with the early screenings. And it came in well under, so I'm still feeling pretty good. Listen.
Yeah, but we got all those people that are seeing it today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 times.
Yeah, but everybody signed up when the ticket rush happened. They all went for the first day. So there's still going to be a lot of crowds on Saturday and Sunday. But look, let's be clear here. I hope you win. I hope you win. I will celebrate with you if you win. I want to see this thing make all the money. The movie's so good. I just don't think it's going to be 250 million, which is fine. Again, I don't want to hear any of these backward-thinking morons going, oh, it didn't make 250 million. Why did Spider-Man fail? It's
Either
like, no,
way,
come on. This thing's going to make like 200 million, and that's going to be a massive, massive success.
It'll be a great weekend.
Yes.
Regardless, it's going to be a great weekend. It'll break some sort of record. And I think, just like Paul Thomas Anderson was hoping, that it does well to get people back.
And for those of you who don't know what Kim's talking about, we talked about this earlier in the week. Paul Thomas Anderson, of course, he's got his new movie coming out called Licorice Pizza. And he was basically said, look, I think it seems the cool thing right now that a lot of people are talking about how, comic book movies are ruining cinema. He's like, no, they're not. I like these movies. And by the way, this is what Paul Thomas Anderson, I respect him so much for this. He's like, we're all trying to figure out a way to get the people to come back to the theaters. Well, you know what's going to bring people back to the theaters, said Paul Thomas Anderson? Spider-Man. And guess what? Dude's a prophet, because he's right. Spider-Man is bringing people back to the theaters. And you could already tell people coming out of the theaters just looking forward to coming back again because they just had a great time at the theater. So good on Paul Thomas Anderson for that. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about Spider-Man No Way Home hitting $50 million just on its opening Thursday? What kind of box office opening weekend numbers do you think it's going to have? Do you think it can get to that $250 million? I certainly hope it does. I don't think it will, but I certainly hope it does. What do you guys think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.
There's gotta be more surveillance towers around I can use to expand my range. I'll be a lot more effective if I can find more towers to activate. I'm in the dark. Where's the surveillance tower when I need one?